Hey, I'm not good at introductions. Honestly, I'm anxious to get this out there, so I'm just going to get this out there. I'm rather unnerved and I just need someone to talk to. My name is Kim and I'm a caregiver. I ride a bike to get from point A to point B. Typically, point B is either the grocery store or the house of the elderly woman that I care for. Marion. She was exceptionally quiet, but I didn't mind the silence at all. I could tell just by the way that she looked at me that she really appreciated just having someone being there for her. Most of the time, she'd sit on the couch and look out the window no matter what the weather was. I really cared about the woman. She reminded me of my grandma, and not just because she was a gentle old lady. She listened to my boring life, and she was there when I was struggling with just the complications of my life, like the death of my father. I suppose you could say that he was my first client. And she never once judged me. Once she scoffed at me when I asked if I should stop talking. In this lonely bubble of a life I have, that meant the world to me. I'm sorry I won't be hearing from her anymore. The few times she talked, she spoke of her husband. Or past husband, I should say. This is easily the most interesting part of my day. Marianne's memory had long since succumbed to dementia. I've recycled conversations with her within the course of 10 minutes, and she'd have the same responses word for word. Her husband, however, was the break in the chain. Doug Lester had the bittersweet fate of dying next to his wife. I never met the man, but based on the gleam in her eye and the loving description that she gave, I bet there was a very sweet love story. You see, Doug died next to his wife of natural causes. Marian, however, doesn't remember it that way. In fact, she couldn't even remember the 17 other ways she claimed Doug had passed. First, it was that he had a heart attack descending the stairs. Next, it was he slipped in the shower, and then he fell off the roof. But the weirdest claim was that one night, she saw him standing in the bedroom doorway, completely naked, with a noose. Once more, she'd add the ominous phrase, "They pulled him down." Now, I don't know where she got an idea like that, but for whatever reason, she couldn't help giving a reason for his death even if I didn't ask for one. Perhaps a better person would find this sad, but I found this amusing. I do feel guilty, please believe me at that. But that's not why I'm here. I was helping Marianne take a bath one night. She was listening to me prattle on about my friends and a guy I was planning on dating. Typical bathroom talk, I guess. She grinned when she saw I had poured bubble bath into the water. And suddenly her demeanor changed. Her lips fell harshly, her brows furrowed as she looked at the bubbles. Her eyes had grown a bit dark on me. And she started crying. Lost and bewildered, I asked what was wrong. She didn't look at me but at the water. Tears streaked down her face and into the soapy water. She started to mumble something. I asked her to repeat what she said, but before I could finish my sentence, she suddenly screamed, "Not again!" She started pounding the water with her fists. She shook her head violently as if she were fighting someone or something. "I can't do this anymore," she cried. "Stop pulling, stop pulling." As a caretaker, you often have to expect the unexpected. Emergency contacts are always on speed dial, but the first thing I knew I had to do was get Marian the hell out of the tub. I had to be quick and gentle as to not harm her, but with her flailing around, it was damn near impossible. Her horrible screaming was deafening. She seemed much heavier than she looked. My knees all but buckled as I felt the intense amount of gravity pull at my joints. I had to keep my emotions under control, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't just as panicked. I quickly wrapped the small old woman in a towel and hustled her out of there. The second we left the bathroom, she was calm. She was shaking like a leaf, but she was calm. It was a complete transformation. She turned her head and looked at me with somber eyes. She asked if she had ever told me about her husband and how they held his feet up in the tub. I've never seen her do that. I spoke to many people at the clinic, but they all gave me the same answer. Sometimes people with dementia experience panic attacks randomly. Panic can cause someone to be much stronger than they actually are. Even if all of this was just Marion Lester's brain rotting away, it still chilled me to the bone. I've thought about that memory so many times since then that maybe that memory itself is getting distorted and demented. I didn't want to bike back there. For the first time ever, I didn't want to go to my client's house. But I thought about my father. And I thought about how difficult it was to see him in that state, but how I loved him and how I needed to go and see him. With weak knees and a thumping heart, I arrived at the house. I called out to her, but quickly realized I wouldn't get a response. I found her body sitting in her favorite chair, staring out with vacant eyes. We had a lovely service for her. She didn't have many family members. She managed to outlive her own children. At the reception, I was tapped on the shoulder. When I turned, I was greeted by a woman around my age. She said her name was Jody and was Marion's granddaughter. Before I could introduce myself, she told me that she already knew who I was. Marion told her plenty. She sat me down with a cup of coffee. She said that her brother was in Idaho and couldn't make it, so, being single and a little bit lonely, she wanted someone to talk to. She said she was sad, but she was happy her grandmother didn't suffer. I told her about the odd occurrence and what she had said. I asked if it meant anything to her. She didn't seem surprised at all. She's describing her dream, she told me. When my grandpa was alive, she had dreams of him dying, being pulled down over and over again, but while doing mundane activities. Though to my horror, before her brain had deteriorated, she told me she was still seeing him die, this time while she was awake. It became too dangerous for her to wander the house alone because sometimes she'd hallucinate tripping over his corpse. She paused before letting out a mournful chuckle. Well, I guess that would mark the point of her dementia, right? I let out a nervous chuckle myself, but there was one problem with her theory. The main reason I'm here. I'm listening to the sound of Marion's noose creak behind me. And it gets louder the more they pull.